Please all rise for the pledge. Donna, would you call roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember Dorsey.
Here.
Councilmember Inesco.
Here.
Councilmember Krantz.
Here.
Mayor Rogers.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anything from council members? All right, seeing none. We'll start with our council reports, and I'll start with Councilmember Schmidt.
Good evening. To report that I attended the EDC board meeting, a MACECOM board meeting last week, and 2 constituent meetings. And that is all.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilmember McDowell?
I attended the ribbon cutting at the new Shang up on Mountain View. I met with Allison Smith. She is in an admin at the Olympic College, and they're looking to bring more technical jobs in, blue-collar jobs, training. They have their welding department, which is going well, but they're looking at some other options for blue-collar jobs for kids and adults. And so I had a good meeting with her on that. I attended the Cities on Tap in Hoquiam, and it was a great time to see other city leaders and talk about what's going on in their cities. And to believe it or not, they have the same issues as we do. We all have the same budget issues, homeless issues, revenue issues, bringing business into their community. So we all share the same. Briefing with Jeff, met with a constituent, and I am going to be going to Wenatchee and accepting an award on behalf of the city of Shelton. The Downtown Connector Project has won the Transportation Project of the Year award from the IACC, the Infrastructure Assistance Coordinating Council. So I'll be doing that next week. And that's my report.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Since our last meeting, I've had 3 constituent meetings and fielded a variety of phone calls on various items from the budget to some permitting issues. This Friday is my Peninsula Regional Transportation Project Organization meeting, which is being held at the Port of Bremerton, and I look forward to reporting back on that at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Had several constituent meetings last 2 weeks. Today attended a homeless presentation in Seattle with Councilmember Inesco and City Manager Knighton and Police Chief Moody. Upcoming, I'm kind of going offline next week, helping with a project at our local schools for our Lions Club, and then looking forward to groundbreaking for the Y, which will be slightly before our next meeting on the 5th. So, Councilmember Krantz.
Yeah, I've been basically talking to people about many issues that the city is involved in, and again, some budget items, and attending staff briefings. I will be attending my a employee appreciation breakfast, I believe, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. And then also from there, I'll be going to my criminal justice board meeting. And I am planning to attend I believe, ribbon cutting at the library coming up here. And then there's one other event that slips my mind at the moment. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Inesco.
Since our last meeting, outside or briefings, I attended the ribbon cutting for the Shanghai. Councilman Dorsey and I attended the Birch Street meeting, Residents for Starting Neighborhood Watch program. Today I attended in Seattle a meeting, a discussion on homelessness, which was very informative. And Thursday I'm going to a chamber luncheon, and I think that is it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dorsey.
Well, I don't really have a whole lot to add. I was at Cities on Tap with Miss McDowell, and the Shang, and our council briefings with Jeff, Oyster Fest, the meeting up on, with the Birch Street people up there. So, yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the period of our first general public comment for items that are not on the business or agenda item. We limit speakers to 3 minutes, and we ask you to fill out a card so we know who you are and we can contact you. And please identify yourself when you come to the podium and whether you're a resident of the city of Shelton. Anything for the?
Yes, we have one person, and that is Cheryl Williams.
Sorry, Mayor Rogers, I didn't fill out a card. Good evening, council members. I'm Cheryl Williams, 309 West G Street, and I'm also a past president of the League of Women Voters of Mason County. I have 2 issues to talk about tonight. The first is Wallace Newland by Walmart has stripes now. And I wasn't sure it was going to be painted. I thought those little flags were permanent, so I was pleasantly surprised. So thank you, Craig Gregory in the Roads Department. The next is Voter Registration Day, which was September 24th, and the league registered voters at 5 different locations that day: Transit Community Center, Shelton Library, Olympic College, Hoodsport Library, and Belfair Library. Altogether, 38 new voters were registered with over 100 address or name changes. We do this various times throughout the year countywide. This time we started a poll, the Apple poll, which involves 8 different issues. Each poll taker got 3 little red apples, really red beads to give you the size, to drop into one of the 8 different cups. Very scientific, I know. And the issues were ones that affected only Mason County. These were the issues: mental health resources, homelessness, environment, education, infrastructure, employment, safety, and other. Not only does this poll tell us where interest lies and what to hold programs on, it also helps you and your constituents. So we've broken the results down into rural and Shelton. So out of these 8, which do you think are on your constituents' minds in the city? And here again are the issues: mental health, homelessness, environment, education, infrastructure, employment, and safety. And there was one that was way outshone the other ones. Does anybody know what it, hazard a guess to what it would be?
Why don't you tell us, Cheryl?
Okay, I will. The number 1 issue in your district, the city of Shelton, was homelessness with 20%. And the number 1 issue countywide is also homelessness. The league will continue to conduct the poll and will continue to update you. If you think of any more issues that people want to talk about, let us know. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.
So
That's it for now,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Second?
A motion to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is accepted. Okay, tonight we have several presentations. First one is from Heidi McCutcheon from the Shelton Chamber of Commerce discussing the 3rd quarter LTAC report.
Good evening, council members. It's my pleasure to present this report on behalf of the 3rd quarter tourism efforts made by the Chamber on your behalf. Just to kind of hit on some of the highlights, our Facebook page now has over 3,000 fans and in 3rd quarter attracted nearly 250,000 unique users. Top post was about where you would take someone visiting for the first time, followed by a post talking about how our Forest Festival royalty won a special award in the Seafair Sea Torch Torchfire Parade. As you can see there on the grid, Shelton continues to be the highest place where our users are from, followed by Olympia, Belfair, Union, Greatview, and Hoodsport. Our visitor counts, currently we have more than 20 volunteers who help out in the chamber office as well as our Hoodsport Visitor Center. As you can see, we've helped more than 6,000 people in the third quarter. That's up slightly over where it was last year. We also have fielded around 600 phone calls during that time also. Our website, where we have our community calendar as well as our membership directory, you can see that our online event calendar was the highest ranking, as well as followed closely by events and festivals. The Chamber also publishes a quarterly issue magazine, Business Matters. There are no LTAC funds used for that for that publication. However, we get out a lot of information about what's happening in Shelton. Some of the main articles in that was about the Expo and Bite of Mason County, which happened on Railroad Avenue. An article about Craft Pie and Art Bar downtown, and then also how to be a tourist in your own town. So, are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Questions for Heidi? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Judge Stephen Greer, who's going to talk about municipal court.
Good evening. And Chuck, anytime you're ready. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. This is my first report to the city court. And I'm used to audiences of students, judges, or professors, not city council members, so I'll see how I do. So, first of all, our jurisdiction is the misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors, infractions, and code violations that happen within the city limits. And those are all handled in the room we're in right now. So there's been a lot of changes with the city court. We now have a mission statement and vision statement, which has not existed before. One of the purposes is to let the public know where the court's coming from, but also to let my own employees know where the court's coming from since the first of this year when I was appointed. And so we are here to protect people's rights and give them fair hearings. And this is posted outside our door. And it's not moving. So our vision statement, and the beginning's kind of slow, then it'll pick up, is very important to the court. We give fair hearings. We need to avoid the appearance of unfairness. So we adhere to the Code of Judicial Conduct and provide open records and proceedings. Any of you are welcome to come to court. Any public member can come to court. One city council member did come to court and sat in the back, took notes, maybe a little bit concerned, but that's okay. So additional independence is very important. We have to be correct, fair, just, even if people do not like the decisions we make. We have to give equal treatment to all, and that's regardless of race, gender, your ethnic background, religion, wealth, physical abilities, sexual orientation, or any other legally protected status. So you come into this courtroom, if you are a criminal defendant or got a traffic ticket, from my perspective, it does not matter if you are a wealthy business owner or whether or not you're a homeless person. Everybody is treated with the same respect in the same way under the law. We have to maintain our independence, and the city is very good at giving the court independence, and that's greatly appreciated. The court will acknowledge and enhance the potential of every person in our organization to contribute to administration of justice through participation, training, and technology. So once I came here, I did inform my administrator who's present that one of my top priorities was education, not just modernizing the court. So I have a court employee over in Yakima right now getting training through the court system. My administrator's been to administrative training. I went to judicial training this year. And also, we'd like to pull in resources from the outside. So your judge is a member of the Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences. That's a national organization. So I did give a lecture in Baltimore this year on law enforcement education in universities. And that is an organization that will create your evidence-based research in the future. So I'm at both ends, beginning and the end of that part. So I want to give you a couple highlights of the court, and I use percentages. I'll let Aaron use the exact numbers and great projections. I decided to use a pie chart with percentages as we go forward into the year. So detention and correction, and a couple of the council members have had the opportunity to have a quick tour of the back here. This includes money paid to the Mason County Jail and the City of Forks Jail. So far, 3/4 of the way through the year, we've used about 2/3 of the budget. Crime goes up and down, so there's no guarantee how it'll look at the end of the year, but so far, so good. The municipal court budget includes the detention budget as well as court employees. It's almost identical. We use about 2/3 of the budget, 3/4 of the way through the year. So again, from my perspective, so far, so good. What changes have we made? So when I came here in January, the court was using multi-layer carbon forms, the ones you press through really hard so you can see what's there or not see what's there. We have now gone to computer forms in this courtroom. They're PDF fill-in. Criminal defendants and leave with a paper copy. The attorneys get their copies emailed to them through the email service. We had some old court rules that were out of date, some of which were just fine, some were not. Some were contradictory to the state rules, so that had to be changed. Also, all the new court rules had to be renumbered, which is an administrative task, but we are one of the first courts in the state to bring our court rules up to date, have them renumbered, fixed, repaired, and sent to the state in Olympia. Regarding sentencing, traditional sentencing that most of the public thinks about is somebody commits a crime to come into court, to get thrown in jail. I think City Council is quite aware of the fact that jail space is an issue. I like to use what's called evidence-based sentencing, which we'll get to in a minute. And that is, I do look at every individual's background, what kind of crimes they've committed, what crimes before the court, what is going to hopefully reduce their criminal activity in the future. So community restitution is a type of restorative justice or giving back to the community, and that's a huge focus of this court. So community service workers come out on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday into the community. They do many things. They clear sidewalks, they pick up the litter on the main streets of town on a regular basis. They do major projects of picking up litter. Some of those requests come from law enforcement, some requests from community service officer from law enforcement. Citizens call in issues, and so we go out, our work crew goes out, these are criminal defendants, and clean up the community. And so this is a garbage trailer that was just abandoned in the middle of town. This is it partially empty. Go ahead. And this is when the work crew is done. The barrels you see there are hazardous waste, and so that they could not take those away. This is what's going to be the paid park and ride leaving town out of Highway 3. It was full of litter, and, oops, you went the wrong way there, Chuck. There you go. So it was, all the litter was picked up by the work crew. Then an individual that was homeless and mentally ill stood in the middle of the pile of the garbage where he could get picked up and threw it everywhere. And so the work crew came back out, and you see the community service officer standing there in the foreground and a community service worker there at the vest. And they finished picking up the garbage so that project could go forward. Okay. Again, the abandoned stolen trailer that was cleaned up. If you come into town, some of you may see this on the way in. This is maintained by the work crew. The master gardeners supply the flowers, and the maintenance is done by the work crew from the city court. This is when they were done. Okay. This is Neelan Park here in town. It's a quick shot. You can see some work crew people in the background. Then when they were done, picking up the park. This is what it was like when they were done. The Civic Center we are right now. The work crew trims most of the hedges and picks up litter outside the building, and that's the work crew member right there, trimming the bushes right outside these windows. This is your library. roadside and parking lot before the work crew got there, and that's what it looked like. And this is what it looked like when they were done. You can go to the next one. This is a general shot of the parking lot before they started. This is what their parking lot looked like when we're done. Public Works is kind enough to supply the bins that you see there in the back of the photo, and they filled all those up. This is a Shelton Creek, which you can't see. My work crew supervisor gets a permit from the state every year to clean out the creek. They have to make sure it's not the wrong time of the year regarding fish runs. And the next photos show what it looks like when you find the creek. And so the work crew actually went into the creek through town in the water and pulled out the garbage and the foliage that did not belong there according to state requirements and took it all out. C Street Camp. There's a lot of talk about homelessness in the city. This is down the hill from a Catholic church in town. They call it the C Street Camp because that's the closest road to it. This is what it looked like when the city work crew, which is again criminal defendants, working off as a penalty, which is what they found there. This is more what they found there. Go ahead. And more. And more. And more. So, and all that was picked up is now gone. I don't know how much has been returned, but they cleaned all that up. Believe it or not, there is a sidewalk in this picture of Bellevue Street, and the work crew did find it. This was at a request of a senior citizen who was trying to walk her dog through town and could never do any, was forced into the street and couldn't find the sidewalk. So that call came into us. The work crew went out there. They found there was a sidewalk apparently. So how much have they cleaned up? There's 444, this is as of the end of September. 444 bags of litter, 3,330 pounds of additional litter in a trailer, 5 mattresses, 2 chairs, a middle desk, several stacks of cardboard, crates, metal, TV, and other miscellaneous items. In yard waste, 32 trailer loads, in addition, 14 bags, 3 truckloads, and those are Public Works trucks, and 110 bins supplied by the city. And that's as of the end of September. All that has been picked up from the streets and woods in the city of Shelton. And I know some of you like numbers. Unlike your finance person, I'm more of a math and accountant, so we'll see how this goes. So I took the first 9 months of this year, and I extrapolated to the end of the year. So assuming the first 9 months will represent the whole year, it'd be 2,092.66. I truncated, just cut it off. Hours, or 261.58 days. Based on what it cost the city if these people went to the jail. The city's saving approximately $32,697.50 of not going to jail because these people are doing work crew and getting back to the community instead. If that's calculated at minimum wage, it's $25,112 of work given to the city by people that have been convicted of crimes and assigned to work crew. If you add up the jail space not paid for, the work given to the city, a direct value of $57,809.50 to the city by the work crew. And in community goodwill there, the blue writing, that's priceless. So the senior citizen who couldn't find a sidewalk was very, very grateful and thanked the work crew. A house that's by the Shelton Creek was ecstatic that the work crew came through there and cleaned up the creek. People who have homeless camps have been abandoned or just garbage piled up near their places of business or homes have come out to my community service supervisor and the defendants who are working and have thanked them many times for what this city has done through the court system to clean things up. You can't give a value to that. I call that goodwill. So community restitution is a type of restorative justice, and academic part of me says yes, that's evidence-based. There is proof that's a good idea. Only one academic slide, so you got off lucky. Other people don't with me. So I picked this particular quote. It basically, in summary, says that community service-based programs, like the one we have here, does work. I picked this particular one because Washington State University was part of this study, and we all know who they are. And also the University of North Texas did this study together. And what's interesting, though, from my perspective, is most of the studies on this type of work in lieu of jail time are done in Europe. And the study mentions the fact that most of the research is done in Europe. And there's a paucity of research in the United States. First community service program for picking up litter came from Los Angeles County. But there is no research on how their project goes. So we have to look to Europe. And Washington State University did look at some places in the United States and concluded it's either the same or better than jail. My perspective is it's better because it gets back to the community. Couldn't leave out my court clerks. They were okay with the picture I chose. So the court clerks do a lot of work. Customer service at the counter, telephone calls, courtroom duties here in this room. And I put down data, data, more data. So the court clerks work on city computers. They also work on computers that connect to the state of Washington. On the computers that connect to the state of Washington, every time they do an entry or do a function, it's counted at the state, and monthly reports come out. So approximately 2.25 clerks are working in the state court system, 467,040 entries, about 1,700 entries a day by the court staff. And I wanted to point out that my staff works really hard. And that's a pretty amazing number, and I could definitely not do that. So last slide almost, a little surprise at the end after this one. So work in progress and looking forward, we are completing electronic court forms. That saves a lot of paper and a lot of time. About 80% of the court forms have been converted to electronic. The community mental health court or community court is a discussion right now between the district court of the county and the city court. I have people looking for funding sources in other counties and also in Kitsap and Mason for community court money. I'm also on an email ticket list with the federal government and have contact in DC through my academic side with grants. And so we're looking very hard to get a community court going with the city court that shows tremendous improvement with those who do go into that program. The city-county joint project is because you're more likely to get grant money if you do it with another jurisdiction. So that improves our odds. Again, court security and safety plan in cooperation with the whole city. So I have an employee that does court security. The city does have a safety plan in draft form, not final form. One of my court employees is on that committee. I'm required by law to have a court security plan by the end of the year. So I've informed my employee of that, and I'm hoping that the city and court safety plan will all happen at the same time by the end of the year. Last on there is DVMRT, that's Domestic Violence Moral Recognition Therapy, probation program with the county. That is for those individuals who are convicted of domestic violence crimes. It is a program that reduces recidivism, or the likelihood of reoffending, by about 20%. The county offers that program for $100. If they go to traditional domestic violence therapy from this court, it costs them like $100 a week for many months. And the traditional programs have a success rate within the margin of error, or from my perspective, 0. So this is an improvement from my perspective for the safety of the community. It's a much better program. The county is offering it $100 to be paid by the defendant, so it's less money for the defendant, much more intense, and a much better result. These last 4 slides were added at the last moment. I want to thank IT and Donna and Mr. Knighton. Last minute meant, I think, Monday. There's been a lot of talk about the Water Tower area, Birch Street area. Most homeless people have left through the efforts of the city, including the police department, also closing off the trail and things like that. But they left quite a mess. And so the city work crew did go up there They thought it'd take a day to clean it. I had 5 work crew people up there with my supervisor. They cleaned it by noon. Then they came down here and washed a couple patrol cars. So we'll show the next picture. This is what was up there. So I understand why the residents of the area weren't very happy. This is some of the bags that have been picked up, getting ready to be hauled off to the dump. You can see the water tower there in the background. This is last photo. So that 2 photos ago, you saw this massive outlay of garbage. That's the same place when the work crew was done. So huge difference. So the last final word I have, trying to stay in my timeline, is the court keeps moving forward. I believe that you have to keep your mind open, keep changing as needed to make things better. And so we do have a lot of employee involvement with the city, with my employees. We also will be offering a mental health first aid class to my city employees. I have found an instructor for that. It has to do with dealing with difficult people, people that are mentally ill, people with anxiety attacks, panic attacks, people that act out when it comes to the public counters, how to deal with them, how to handle them, how to recognize what issues they're dealing with. So the city will be hosting a seminar on that issue. It's a one-day seminar. All city employees will be attending. I've also, this is very recent, like a matter of days ago, so I did offer it to the city, to the county. The county will be paying to have people come to the seminar, so we're hoping to break even. And so far, they don't know it yet, but at least 3 correction officers and 3 deputy sheriffs will be attending at the request of their risk management. I informed the chief of it today. I don't know if his people need that or not. I know they've had some mental health training of their own. But it's open to any city employee or county employee. We're looking to hopefully have a class of 20. It is an excellent course in mental health for anybody that deals with the public that might be mentally ill, of which we have a lot in this room. So with that, I'm done. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Judge. Questions for Judge Greer?
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you do and your staff does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Fire Chief McKern, and he's going to talk to us about Fire Prevention Month.
Well, it's Fire Prevention Month, so but I'm also going to give you some updated data. I haven't been here for a while. The data you have in your tab there, you'll see that we're at 6,431 responses in the district, and in the city at 2,486. Keeping in mind our golden star obviously is EMS. We're still sticking around 82 to 84% on the EMS data. So that's just some good data stats for you. Where we're probably going to end up the year is somewhere close to 9,000 responses, and about 40% of those roll out of the city as well. So that's some pretty good numbers. It's up about 60% for us in the district, and about 30% up in the city as well. So those are great numbers. Fire Prevention Week, as we approached that last week, we actually call it Fire Prevention Month. Since we're such a large district to try to get there. Obviously, the big focus this year is on planning escape routes. We did something fun last week, and if you happen to see a fire truck that had a Domino's little mark on the top of it, yep, we went out and delivered Domino's pizzas, and the catch was, if you had a working smoke detector, then you also got a free Domino's pizza. And so they did it nationwide, went across the nation with it. We were one of them. I brought the deputy fire marshal who's going to talk to you in a minute about Knox boxes, and he mounted up on a fire engine with some Domino's folks, and we went out there, and it was a great success. We owe kudos to Walmart. They donated a bunch of smoke detectors, and we thank them for doing that, and we'll do the program again. It was really, really, really well attended when we went through there as well. So Fire Prevention Week, we're kind of promoting in the schools as well. The other piece is that we have a new unit that we're using through Port Townsend. It's kind of a trailer, if you will. You'll start seeing it around over the next year. Some of the events, especially Forest Festival and those kinds of things. And it's a great hit. You think electronics is fun, but it's an actual trailer, and it actually works and does some earthquake things as well. But other than that, I'm going to let Keith Ritz, who's our new deputy fire marshal, talk about Knox boxes, which seems to be what the city is all about.
So one of our big things this year we've been looking at when we're doing inspections is the Knox boxes. I believe Chief McKern sent you guys the info previously. Basically what they are is they're secure steel boxes that you bolt into the side of your building, and then only fire departments have access into the box. So the idea is the fire departments can just carry one key instead of having keys to every single business. Some thing some people don't realize is each department has their own key. So my key doesn't get into West Mason's or District 11's. Each department has their own individual key. So we've been really pushing for businesses to try and get that. Originally, we were requiring that any business gets a Knox box. After doing some more research and looking at some of our response data, we realized that we weren't really going to businesses without automated fire alarms in the middle of the night. So we brought that back to only if they're a business with an automated fire alarm are we requiring Knox boxes. That's because in the middle of the night, there might be a malfunction or there might be actually a fire, and we'll get a call at 3 a.m. And we don't want to have to cause unneeded damage to a building or wake them up at 3 a.m. if it's just an accidental alarm, so we can gain access easily and quickly. I think that's all I have, unless you guys have any questions on Knox boxes.
I don't want to Knox the boxes, but as a retailer in Shelton, Washington, I'm sure there's a very high level of security for those keys to those boxes, because all of us have our keys, and, and if somebody got hold of your key, So, could you want to talk a little bit about, does it go home with you and you set it on a shelf, or?
No, definitely not. So what we have is, they're called Key Secures 5s. So it's something we just started implementing this year. So it's a box that's mounted to our rigs. Each rig has one, including my car and Chief McKern's car and Chief Patty's. And each person has an individual code. So you type in your code, and it's a 6-digit code, and then the key will unlock, and then you put the key back in it and lock it. And then what that does is it goes to our Chief Patty's computer, and he can pull up who pulled it out, the exact time they pulled it out, down to the second, which key it was, and then what time it was returned. So it's a lot better way of trying to making sure they're secure, and we can make sure that we know who's taking them out and when.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, Keith, some of the concerns we've heard from businesses is actually the steel box itself, the Knox box itself being vandalized and, intruded and the keys stolen out of the box. Has that actually happened in the city limits? Do you have any info on that?
So in the city limits, I haven't heard of any reports to it. And I've heard some of those concerns, so I even called Central Pierce, West Pierce, and Seattle and Tacoma Fire, their fire prevention offices, see if they've had any reports. Between the three, there was 2 reports of someone just kind of gumming up the key lock to where you couldn't actually get in the box anymore. And then another couple reports, people stealing the boxes but never being able to gain access. And actually law enforcement was able to get the boxes back later on. So in all 4 scenarios I was able to find where people still weren't able to get the key, but they were able to make it so the box was unusable, but the keys were still locked inside.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Keith.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Chief. You have some more, Chief?
Nope, I'm good.
Oh, all right, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we're gonna recess out of our regular meeting and open a public hearing about the 2020 preliminary budget and consideration of the 2020 ad valorem tax levy. So, Aaron?
Good evening, council members. Aaron B. Miller with the city's finance department. This is our public hearing on the 2020 ad valorem taxes. State law limits the annual increase in property taxes that may be imposed to 1% over the previous year or the increase in the implicit price deflator. As of the end of August 2019, the IPD was about 1.4%, which means the city can increase their property taxes by the full 1%. The city's 2020 budget is built using that full 1%. The county assessor is responsible for property valuations, and the 2020 collections are based on their work in 2019. The chart that you have in front of you shows across the top the assessed value of the city, citywide, and by year. The 2018 and 2019 amounts are known because they have happened. The 2020 is an estimate. We should be getting information from the county assessor's office hopefully by the end of October, early November. In 2018, the assessed valuation was $652,712,000 in 19, and we're estimating about 776. And that's simply taking the increase in between 17 and 18 and applying that to 19. In order to get to the levy rate, you take the assessed valuation divided by 1,000, and that will help inform the rate. As property values go up and we're constrained by the 1%, the rate must go down. So it's not that you're paying less in property taxes, you're just paying less per $1,000 of assessed valuation. We also have in here the EMS levy rate, which I believe 2020 will be year 4 of 6. And so our estimated total 2020 property tax is about $2,401,000, $2,402,000. Below, for presentation purposes only, we've taken a valuation of about $250,000 in 2019, backed it down by about that 9% growth between 18 and forward for 20. All told, between just the regular levy and the EMS levy, a house with a valuation of about $250,000 in 2019 would pay about $843 annually in taxes for 2020. And with that, I can step aside for any public comment.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Do we have anyone who would like to speak to the ad valorem tax part of this? Anybody?
I don't have anyone, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone? All right, seeing none. Aaron, would you continue on the budget?
You bet. So this is the second public hearing on the city's 2020 budget. The 2020 budget is being built using realistic revenue assumptions and matching expenditures to that level. Our budget practice uses an incremental budgeting process where 2009 expenses, less one-time only expenses, are used to inform the 2020 base budget. Adjustments to those expenditure levels are dependent on available ongoing revenue or fund balances for qualifying expenses, and qualifying expenses for fund balance are one-time only expenses for one-time only resources. The budget process is challenging, was challenging again this year, as baseline resources were not able to keep up with ongoing expenses. This is especially true in the general fund. And the 2020 budget is balanced, but further refinements are going to be necessary as we continue through this process. Our general budget assumptions, as we presented earlier to the Committee of the Whole, we have medical increases of about 6%, dental increases of 4% or 5% based on the plan. The public employment retirement system rate is about just under 13%, that is set by the state. Our cost of living adjustment, which is based on the West Region Consumer Price Index, is currently at 3%. Our non-labor expenses will increase by that same 3%, except where we have a known contract amount, and the implicit price deflator will be at 1% or greater. We know that is true now, and that the council will approve the coming updated non-represented salary survey. Citywide budget by fund, the budget for 2020 currently sits at about $30.4 million. The budget, as it was presented earlier, uses about $4.6 million in one-time fund balances for one-time projects. The general fund piece of that is about $12.3 million. This slide here shows the general fund budget by department going down, and then, of course, general fund revenues also equal the $12.3 million, so we have a balanced budget for 2020. Just further breaking down the revenue categories, and as a comparison to previous years, the last column is the percent change between the 2019 estimate and the 2020 budget, and you can see where those percentage changes are. In the tax area, we are a little bit lower. That is mostly due to our estimate for sales tax, which is using 17 and 18 as more of the baseline than 19 for our sales tax revenue. This next slide breaks down our tax revenue a little bit more fully. So you can see property tax is about 1.3%. What that is, it's the 1%, the state law 1% plus any adjustments for new construction that have happened. Sales and use tax, it's down about 3%. That's because in 2019, we were receiving a lot of sales tax from heavy construction work. And as those levels start to normalize, we're bringing that back down a little bit. And then we have utility taxes, B&O taxes, and then other taxes in that mix. So a total of just about even from the 2019 estimate. Projects included in the budget, $50,000, which will be transferred in 2019 for police vehicles. The budget also begins to build a reserve for capital in the general fund of $30,000. Street transportation-related projects, chip seal, residential paving. We've budgeted money for Railroad Avenue rehab as well as a new salt bin building. We have residential sewer blocks, the landfill closeout, in the water fund, a laydown yard, SCADA updates, on-site chlorine generation, and main replacement. And then we're also going to purchase some new vehicles in the equipment maintenance and rental fund. The biggest one of those is the Vector truck, which Public Works Director Gregory has talked about this year. The purchase got delayed, so it's coming next year. And it's a carryover budget. Position by funds. The 2020 positions at this point in time, total 99.3 positions. The August 2019 positions were 95.9, so that's an increase of about 3.8 positions. And you can see where those positions are increasing or decreasing as the case may be in the general fund. And then just real quickly, budget actions for next steps. We had a committee of the whole meeting today. We have another one scheduled for November 5th, and then tentatively scheduled for November 19th. Finance will continue to work with departments to refine the budget numbers prior to the council adoption. The budget ordinance and the property tax ordinance are scheduled for the November 19th business agenda, and then according to the schedule, that would be adopted at the December 3rd meeting. And with that, I can step aside.
Thank you, Aaron. Anyone signed up?
No, there isn't, Mayor.
Okay, is there anyone who'd like to comment on the budget presentation, 2020 budget? Okay, seeing none, we'll close out our public hearing and continue with our regular meeting. We'll move on to the business agenda. Has anyone signed up for any of the comment on the business agenda items?
No, there isn't, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. First on the list is Public Works Director Craig Gregory has information about DOE 2019-2021 Stormwater Capacity Grant.
Thanks, Mayor and council members. Happy to present to you tonight a grant to help out with our implementation of the new stormwater permit that has been handed down by Department of Ecology. A total of $95,000 to help out with implementation over the next 2 years. That is an ongoing grant that's awarded every biennium, so we're hoping to continue with that in the future, but some help to the very expensive new permit that we have in front of us and the work that we have in front of us also. We did just receive information on this recently, last month, and the closing date is rapidly approaching to get this signed. So we are asking for the council to waive the two-touch rule or the three-touch rule and approve the grant tonight, if acceptable.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions for Craig? Seeing none, do we have concurrence to move it ahead without an extra touch?
Yes.
Okay, no objections? Okay. Do we have a motion then?
I move to accept the 2019 to 2021 biennial stormwater capacity grant and authorize the Public Works Director to sign the agreement with the Department of Ecology.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to accept the 2019-2021 biennial stormwater capacity grant and authorize the Public Works Director to sign the agreement with the Department of Ecology. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, back to Director Gregory, brief us on the FCS Group Rate Study Amendment Number 2.
So on the same topic, taking a look at our stormwater rates, FCS group, we had them look at those earlier this year, knowing that the new permit was coming and the workload that came with that. The recommendations that they brought back to us, initially, staff took a look at those and we're looking at other options as opposed to just a flat rate increase. We didn't think that that was acceptable and wanted some other options to bring forward to the council. So city staff has done quite a bit of work to do some impervious surface calculations on about 1,000 properties within Shelton, a good percentage of those being commercial properties, also multifamily and single family, along with government and schools. So they are going to take that information. We should have that finished up and back to them by the end of this week. And they will take a look at that and bring forward some other options. That did create a slight increase to the original budget that they had to work on this, an increase of about $7,600 to complete this additional task that we will be bringing back recommendations to this council later this year, if not later this year, early in 2020. So we are asking for a slight increase to that budget to move forward with that. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Craig. Questions for Craig? Seeing none, I have concurrence to move this forward to the action agenda for November 5th. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have City Manager Jeff Knighton. He's going to share information to us about the 2020 legislative agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. As part of the city's efforts to influence, affect, and guide the passage of legislation in the state legislature, we've identified legislative priorities to provide input to our legislative delegation, and I've attached that delegation to this briefing sheet along with the accompanying resolution. The other part of the package is the Association of Washington Cities legislative priorities that are also included in the resolution. We've discussed this at work sessions, all the legislative priorities. I won't go through each and every one of them now, but if you have any questions about any individual item or the overall package, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Questions for Jeff? Okay. Seeing none, with council concurrence, we'll move resolution number 1152-0919 to the action agenda for November 5th. Okay, thank you. Now back to Jeff. Has information about the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee grant recommendations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. Each year, the city accepts applications requesting funding from the dedicated revenue source provided by the collection of taxes from the motel, and hotel, and Airbnbs in the city, and that is the city's tourism budget. The LTAC committee is chaired by our mayor and has made recommendations on where to spend the grant dollars this year. As you can see on the briefing sheet, the grant application submitted for 2020 included Explore Hood Canal, Christmastown Kiwanis, the Forest Festival, of course, and several events related to our historical society. And the total grant requests were $87,410. The total grant recommendations from the LTAC committee are $74,780, and each one of those recommendations is listed on your briefing sheet. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I also wanted to note that Rachel Hansen and Heidi McCutcheon is here, and I believe they have would like to address the council on a few of these items and/or help me answer questions if you have any.
Okay, everybody good with Heidi and Rachel? Okay. Would you guys come up?
So as you can see, we have joined forces to continue Santa's return to Christmastown, USA. Rachel and her family went to great lengths last year to redo the Beauchamp Santa and had him up in front of Tozer's. One of those grant applications is so that we can create a permanent structure to hang Santa up near Overlook Park. The idea is that within that, it would change out seasonally, so we may be able to do Paul Bunyan before Forest Festival, maybe the Oyster Man before Oyster Fest, and then, of course, Santa before the Christmas season. One of the things that we are particularly concerned about with this grant is timing. We would like to have Santa up prior to the Christmas season this year. Due to the materials and such that we've used in the past, it doesn't make sense to do it at Tozer's again, so we are looking to move that to Overlook Park and use more permanent materials for that.
And part of that is obviously I'm not first here. Part of that is the engineering, the geotech for any location that we are able to do it on public property. It's going to take some time, and with marketing and media, as well as the engineering, we're concerned that the date of November 5th might be a little late for this Christmas season, so we just don't want Shelton to go without a 32-foot Santa Claus.
Okay. Do you have any questions for our guests on this project? Councilmember Brown?
Just a comment, being here for 8 years and soon to be retiring. I just think that the citizens of Shelton owe a huge amount of thanks to the nonprofits, the volunteer groups that are represented in what we're seeing before us. If you did not have the volunteer groups doing this work for the city of Shelton, we truly would not have a wonderful place that we've grown to love. So, I mean, there is no doubt, I believe this city has more volunteers and more people that are just doing the work that we're not paying for to make this a wonderful place. And I just think that not only to Heidi in the chamber, but to everybody that volunteers on these groups, from the Kiwanis on down, big load of gratitude that the citizens owe them. And so I just like to express that gratitude to you, and all of that is represented on these numbers here, so.
Okay. Any questions? Are you going to address the other project? Or-
Sure. For that one? If there's a need for it, we're happy to. I don't know what you guys
Okay.
have actually taken a review of. The other project that we're looking at coordinating on is basically ramping up what was begun last year. So as Santa arrived, it got a lot of news media and a lot of people asking what else is happening. So Rachel came up with a great idea of creating kind of a event structure around the Christmas season. So different things happening on events, bringing real greenery throughout downtown. So the swags that will go across the street, wreaths on the light post and lamp posts throughout town. So we've already reached out to some partners that are really excited about assisting and coordinating with that. So we understand that this will be seed money for this year so that we can gauge what the interest is and see if it's something that moving forward we can find sponsors and private dollars, not public dollars. But we think that there's a good base that was built last year, and we'd like to capitalize on that moving forward for the city of Shelton.
Thank you. And I know Heidi and I talked about the timing, and I made the decision not to bring it forward as a variance to our free touch rule. So I'm asking Rachel, is that going to cause you?
It
I
does.
know it sounds like it's gonna
some
cause you
issues.
grief,
Yeah,
but-
it's not, well, it does cause issues because we're coming into the holiday season now, and unfortunately, it didn't get done quicker, but I do understand that the lodging tax, we're actually pretty much a year and a bit ahead here, so, because this was the 2020 application, so this really should have been brought up last year. So I understand the difficulties, but was hoping that there might be something a Christmas miracle.
Well, they may, I won't be voting on this because I do work for the chamber, and so I'll be abstaining from the vote on the actual recommendations. But it would seem to me that our three-touch rule has been in an effort to maintain transparency on funding, and to me, the lodging tax committee in and of itself being separate from the council decision fulfills that requirement, so I would feel comfortable moving forward.
Waiving the three-touch rule, you mean?
Mhm.
I'd be comfortable with that also.
So part of my concern is a lot of this depends upon funding from the community and from private individuals to try get their, it's over, I'd say 65–70% of it is going to be private funding that will be needed to make the Christmas town happen. And as far as the Santa Claus, I'm really concerned about the time it'll take to do the engineering and just to get that process going through, because last year we put them up before Thanksgiving, and I would love to be able to do that again. So as far as from a marketing point of view, the November 5th is after the deadline on a lot of our marketing campaigns. So if we're not including Christmastown USA and all our efforts, I've spoken to some folks who are willing to put on a Christmas pageant. I mean, a lot of people have come forward with excitement about the idea. I'm not saying that we couldn't do this next year, but as you all know, I'm one to jump on things when it comes up, and
And if
like
I
to.
can also add the caveat that when lodging tax applications were due last year, we didn't know that this was going to be happening. So it was after that point in time that Rachel and her family began renovation of the Beauchamp Santa. And so there wasn't really a way for us to do that. We would hate to see the momentum be lost off of the excitement that was built last year and kind of rejuvenating Christmastown USA, but we understand that there are certain structures that you guys have to adhere to also.
Question on process and budget. Probably two questions, if I can take two. This is for 2020. The request is for 20. When do we disseminate funds to the grant, whoever we award the grants to? If this were for 2020.
As the bills come in, I believe.
But would we be able to award the grant funds in 2019 for a 2020 project?
Under the requirements of your lodging tax application, we put down January of 2020 for funds. Because it would be after the Christmas project.
If I may, as far as the RCWs, my understanding of that is that the funds are reimbursement for services rendered. So part of those services will be in 2019, part of them will be in 2020. And so it can be a multi-year expansion. It's just when the funds will be requested and received.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Hi there. So the funds technically, as you adopt them for 2020, will become available January 1. But what we could do is bring forward, as part of our supplemental ordinance, funds available. There is some fund balance and funds available. You can start that in 2019, reduce the 2020 by whatever you budget for in 2019. I guess the issue with that is once 2019 ends, those funds lapse and they would fall back into fund balance. So if they're not going to be spent and reimbursed in 2019, then we would want to go ahead and keep them in 2020. So there is that bit of a complication. The other thing you could do to make things more complicated is go ahead and
Thank you, Eric.
budget them in 2020 and then also do a supplemental and then pull back in 2020, whatever ends up being paid out in 2019. So there are some options available if that's what the council would like to do.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to check on the specifics of process with this. And then my second question is, this is not a fund that we are intending in 2020 to maintain a 16 to 20% end fund balance in, correct?
That's
Very good.
It's already got a 200% balance.
Yeah.
Fund balance in it.
Step up to the plate, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm looking for agreement to vote on it final tonight or pass it on to action item for November 5th. So what's the consensus of the council?
I say waive it.
Do it tonight.
You're done.
All right,
Yeah.
we're in agreement on that, so.
There you go.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
so we can move it to our action item or just take a vote?
You can take a vote now.
Okay, so let's take,
Do we need to have the budgetary components in the motion since we're moving into action with the intention that there will need to be an amendment to the budget for that?
I think you can mention that, but the actual mechanics of it will happen in the supplemental.
okay. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the recommendations of the LTAC committee for funding for 2020 with a possible budget amendment.
So moved.
Okay. And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion, I have to repeat it. We have a motion to accept the recommendations of the LTAC committee for funding for 2020 and with a possible budget amendment reflecting some expenditure in 2009.
I would just
with a
say.
Possible budget amendment.
Yep.
Leave it at that. Okay? All in
Second.
favor?
I already did that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abstain.
And just,
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone, for bearing through that. Move on to the action agenda. We have one item tonight. Donna, is anyone signed up for public comment?
No, I do not have anyone, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So our action item tonight, we have Community Development Director Mark Ziegler. He's going to speak about surplus of city vehicles.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Following up on the briefing from October 1st, Community Development Department has 2 vehicles that are no longer use to the department. One 1997 Ford F-150 and one 1995 Chevy S10. Per city policy, this takes council action to declare surplus because they are valued over $1,000, just barely on both of them, per Kelly Blue Book. So with the council's approval, seeking action on this, on the surplus tonight.
Okay, any questions for Mark? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 1151-0919, authorizing surplus of city assets.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 1151-0919, authorizing surplus of city assets. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Sayonara,
Okay.
1985 Chevy S10.
Last segment of open public comment.
I have Salita Johnston.
Hello, I'm Salita Johnston. Kyle and I live on the cusp of city. We pay county taxes, but we have city water, so we're kind of both, best of both worlds. I'm going to start light and then go into the ugly. I just want to tell the city and city planners, engineers, workers, I just love the city streets and the new sidewalks. I walk and run through town quite a bit, and they are a joy to traverse, drive and whatnot. So I also enjoy that there are garbage cans in pivotal places around town. up Mountain View, so if there is trash on the ground, we pick it up and toss it in. I would hope, or would ask, I'm guessing this is a spot, to, since we're talking about Overlook Park, love the Christmas Town coming back thing too, that's very cool. If we could put a garbage can up at the wheel, nice big one, because there is not one up there, and it seems to get a lot of garbage with people stopping to look at the view. And so whenever we pick up garbage, we just keep on going up the hill and we take it to Eric's store. Thank you, Eric. And we use his trashes. So on that, last week or the last meeting, somebody proposed that the city give a parcel of land for what I assume sounded like a tent city kind of concept. And I ardently would plead that we would not do that. Not because I'm lacking in compassion, because I'm not. I think that we need to give a hand up and not a handout. And I understand there's a lot of mental illness and, stuff like that. But in talking to quite a few of the people in my passings and goings, quite a few seem pretty sane, normal, and capable. And I don't believe, with all the wonderful things we're doing to our town, beautifying it, that putting a tent city anywhere near city limits or even county, and even in that, do we want to put people to a spot where they will dwell? Does it follow that they're going to stay there? Is that what we want for people? My thoughts are they're probably going to still come into town, and then I know that she was thinking there would be volunteers. I'd probably like to see more of that on paper, actual people committing. Anyway, just my position on that, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Okay, we'll move on to City Manager Knight for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and the public. Just a couple things tonight. First, I wanted to mention again that the Spotlight Shelton event will be held on October 30th, right here in the Civic Center. We're hoping for a lot of participation. We are going to be discussing past successes over the last year and future successes through 2020, what projects we have lined up and ready to go. Next, we have hired a new, or extended an offer, and it's been accepted for a new communications specialist here at the city, and that person will begin work on October 30th. So they will be here to experience the Spotlight Shelton event and see everything that we've been doing, and then they can tell me how they can do it better, which is why they're here. So, and lastly, I wanted to remind everybody that the Census 2020 is coming up, and that is a very important item for the city and for the population of the city. Many of our revenues are apportioned by population, and that will set the course for the city of Shelton for the next 10 years until our next census in 2030. So it's very important that we participate as much as possible, and that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have some.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Questions for our city manager? All right, hearing none. Issues from the council, topics to bring up? Again, hearing none. We are adjourned. Our next meeting will be November 5th at 6 p.m.